Good morning. Today I am giving information about the third semester subject fabric structure. In that, unit third, looms. What is loom? Today's session is a fourth session. Earlier session you have learnt about the loom, definition of a loom, types of the looms, and parts of the looms, functions and parts of the looms, and last preparation of the for the weaving. These are the motions of the weaving listed out. That is the picking, shedding, beating up, taking up, and the letting off. See, first is the shedding. Through the harnesses, you are creating the shedding process motion. That is then picking. That is through the shuttle you are inserting the pick. That is the weft yarn, and the beating up. Beating up after insertion of the weft yarns with the warp yarns, you beat up the reed towards the cloth beam. Then it is the take up, that is the taking the warp yarn and let off, that is after woven the cloth you are giving leaving the that yarn. Motions of the weaving. First one is the shedding. The raising of the alternate warp yarns formed an inverted V opening or shed through which the filling yarn is inserted with the help of harnesses. So, first motion is the shedding. What is the shedding? Shedding is nothing but the raising of the alternate warp yarns. That is, in the interlacement order, we are giving the, for example, plain weave 1 into 1 interlacement order. So, raising of alternate, that is a one warp yarn is raised and another warp yarn is lowered. So with the shedding is done by the harnesses. So V-shaped, earlier shown in the figure, V-shaped shed, that is the opening is formed. Through that the filling yarn is inserted. Filling yarn is inserted. See the V shape, this is the shed. Raising and lowering of the warp yarns, this is the shed, and this is the shedding. Picking. As the harnesses raises the heddles, which in turn raise the warp yarns, the filling yarn is inserted through the shed by carrier device. Single crossing of the filling from one side of the loom to the other is known as the pick. What is a pick? Single crossing. That is the filling of the one side from the another. That is known as the pick. That is the weft yarn. As the harnesses raises the heddles, which in turn raises the warp yarns, and the filling yarn is inserted through that shed through the carrier, that is the reed. Shuttle. Here the inserting the weft yarns through the shuttle. Picking process, that is. Beating up or battening. All the warp yarns pass through the heddle eyelets and through the openings in another frame that resembles a comb and is called a reed. That is, beating process is done by the help of the reed. What is the reed? Reed is used part of the loom, which is used for the beating up or the battening. With each picking operation, the reed automatically pushes or beats each filling yarn against the portion of the fabric that has already been formed. It gives the fabric a firm, compact construction. So, what is a beating? Beating is nothing but the process which is carried out by the reed, part of the loom, that is the reed, which resembles the comb. Already you know that how the reed resembles, it is a metallic comb. So, through which the last inserted weft yarns is pushed towards the cloth beam to form the cloth or the fabric. So this is the beating up or the battening. This process is carried by the part of the which part of the loom, that is the reed, which resembles the comb. See this is the reed, metallic comb, which pushes the inserted weft yarns towards the cloth beam. So this is the reed, that is beating up or the battening process. See this warp beam, cloth beam, this is the stave, these are the harnesses, these are the heddle, this is the heddle which has the eye, this is a reed and the shuttle. How this raising and lowering of the harnesses, raising and the lowering of the warp yarns from the shed through the passes, which passes the yarn passes, that is warp yarn passes through this eye, forms the shed, and through the reed you are beating the inserted weft yarns towards the cloth beam. We are inserting the weft yarns through this shuttle and pushes towards the cloth beam to form the continuous fabrics. This is the representation method of the motions of the weaving. Taking up and letting off. With each shedding, picking and beating operations, the newly constructed fabric must be wound on the cloth beam. So after shedding, picking and battening up, the newly constructed fabric must wound on the cloth beam. This process is known as the taking up. So last inserted weft ends is beaten towards the cloth beam, that is wounded on the cloth beam. This process is known as the taking up. At the same time, the warp yarns must be released from the warp beam. This is referred as the letting off. So after wounded the cloth on the cloth beam, at the same time you have to release the warp yarns must be released from the warp beam. This is known as the letting off. These are the motions of the weaving. After completion of this, the cloth construction or the fabric construction completes. So you need the four motions mainly, that is the shedding, picking, beating up or the battening, and the last one is the taking up and the letting off. This completes the weaving process. So it repeats shedding, picking and beating up or the battening and taking up and the letting off. All these motions create the, which is helpful for the manufacturing of the fabric with the help of the parts of the loom. See, this is the shedding process, that is a motion of first motion, shedding. This is the picking, they have to pick the inserting the weft yarns through the shuttle, then beating up. With the help of the reed, you are beating the last inserted towards the cloth beam. So all these are the motions of the weaving which are carried out in the weaving process. You have to answer these questions. First question is, describe the motions of the weaving, define shedding, define picking, define beating, define taking up and the letting off. So all these covers the motions of the weaving. All these are the shedding, picking, beating, taking up and the letting off. All completes the weaving process, that is the motions of the weaving. Thank you.